lack of respect that the Vikings are being given right now is just over the top. So I'm going to pick the schedule here. I know everybody's definition of optimistic or homerism can be different, as well as pessimism versus realistic, but I think I can be objective here. At the moment, we don't know what's going on with Danielle Hunter, but I mean, honestly, what would these national pundits be saying if we brought back all of those old players? They'd be saying, didn't you learn your lesson from how fraudulent you were last year with all those one-score victories? And yes, I know I can be a little bit optimistic when I say our defense can't be any worse now that we actually have a real defensive coordinator in town. So we're going to go through this schedule here today, and I'm going to be as objective as I possibly can be. You wouldn't know objectivity if it hit you in the face. I see the pessimistic side has joined us today as well. That's realistic to you. More like curmudgeon. Whatever, punk. The curmudgeon and the punk. Have we heard this one before? Indeed. The Minnesota Vikings opened their season at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and frankly, this is a really good place to start the season. The entire division of the NFC South is utter garbage, and frankly, you couldn't have picked a better opponent to start with. Baker Mayfield? Really? Yeah, I see the Vikings winning by at least 2 touchdowns in this game. What say you? I'll remind you, the last time that Baker Mayfield came into US Bank Stadium, he put a W on that field. So let's just not pretend that Baker Mayfield is chopped liver. Odell Beckham dropped more balls than a hernia surgery that day, or he might have thrown for 4 touchdowns. But I agree. You better go 4-0 in this division. This NFC South is just absolute trash. 1-0 for me. But I think it'll be a relatively close game. Once again, everybody's against the Vikings, making them travel to the Philadelphia Eagles on week 2 and on a short week. And I don't like their chances any more than they did last year. Kirk Boy had an opportunity to dispel some narratives. And while he did most of the time last year, during the regular season, of course, he didn't exactly do so. And I see this being no different. The Eagles' offensive and defensive lines are just too much for the Vikings to handle. Well, I agree, Philadelphia is better. If not for that pathetic defensive performance in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl, they would have been champions again. But they have a new offensive and defensive coordinator, so it's going to take time for them to adjust to the new systems. I think Philly wins as well, 1-1, but I think this game's a lot closer than you do. Shocker. Philadelphia by at least 10. Week 3, the Vikings will host the Los Angeles Chargers after off a mini bye week. So I actually think the Vikings have a definite advantage of this game. 2 very, very close teams. Being that this game is at home and the Vikings coming off some extra week to lick their wounds from the Philadelphia loss, I see a victory here by at least 10 points. Yeah, this is definitely a coin flip game, and I think Herbert's a little underrated myself. But hey, at the end of it, it's going to be in US Bank Stadium. I like the Vikings here, but I think it's going to be one of those 3-point games down to the wire, maybe even another one of those fourth quarter comebacks. I'll be very shocked if they end up losing this game. Adam Thielen revenge game. Yeah, that's about it. The Vikings are going to absolutely mop the floor with this Carolina Panthers team. They're about a year or 2 away, and while I would have loved to have had Bryce Young as well, the Vikings win by at least 14 points, if not 21. The Vikings are going to easily win this one. No, I agree. Adam Thielen, he'll catch a touchdown and he'll do a gritty or something, but at the end of the day, the Vikings are going to ultimately trounce the Carolina Panthers. This one won't be close at all, and hopefully my guy Rap will be able to get some autographs or at least some pictures or something, but no, this game will be very entertaining for Vikings fans. We are agreeing way too much thus far. Let's make short order of this one. The Kansas City Chiefs are coming to the Viking Stadium, and while I think it'll be a competitive game, I don't think it'll be a blowout. Kansas City's going to win this game. Patrick Mahomes has defeated every team in the NFL, not named the Kansas City Chiefs or the Minnesota Vikings, and he completes the NFL go-round of beating every team except the one you play for. The Vikings don't do well when Jim Nantz and Tony Romo call games. Yeah, the Vikings don't do well when Jim Nantz and Tony Romo are calling games. That's very, very true. But I think this game is going to be closer than you do. I think they're not going to lose this game by any more than 10 points. This is where the season really gets interesting. The Vikings should go 4-0 against the Bears and the Packers, and we finally get the Bears in Soldier Field, and it's not December or January. But I think Justin Fields, while I think the hype has gotten to be a little too much, is still a touch underrated. He's had no infrastructure around him, and I'm calling for the upset here, punk. The Bears are going to beat the Vikings in Soldier Field, but it won't be the end of the world. We finally get the Chicago Bears in Soldier Field, and it's not December or January, and you're picking this as a loss? It's called realism. I think this will be a competitive game, but this is a noon kickoff, which means Kirk Cousins will be phenomenal. Even you can't deny that. This is a team I'm guaranteeing that you have as a loss because everybody's picking the Vikings to lose to the Final Four participants last year, but this is the one that is going to be, for all intents and purposes, for the number 2 seed in the NFC playoff positioning, and I have the Vikings beating the 49ers because they don't have a reliable quarterback, which is only the most important position on the field. I'm going to say this right now. I don't care who the quarterback is at that particular point in time, whether it is Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, Joe Bag of Donuts, or you or me, they'd still beat the Vikings. Why? Offensive line and defensive line. They are still worlds better in those two areas. And while that's not the quarterback position, it's not going to matter if old Kirky Boy is on his backside like he was against Dallas. And guess what? We still don't know what's going on with Danielle Hunter. That offensive line is going to be able to take care of the Vikings enough. 5-2. Now, 49ers winning this game. Fear not, even the curmudgeon knows when the tide's going to turn. And this is a 5-game stretch where the Minnesota Vikings better go at least 4-1, if not 5-0. And it starts with the Green Bay Packers. Listen here, by this particular point in time, Jordan Love will be shown to be the fraud that he is. Lightning rarely strikes twice in the same spot. It sure does not strike 3 times. No, I'm not predicting that the Vikings are going to beat the Packers, punk. Oh, boy. You are not. No, you're They not. Are going to destroy the Packers in Lambeau Field. Halloween nightmares start early for the Packers and their fans. I didn't think you had it in you. What's that phrase? If you know, you know. The Packers are done. The Packers are done. I should have never done that bit. 6-2. 4-4. Well, over the next 2 weeks, the Vikings will round out their tour of the NFC South, and I don't see the Dirty Birds having anything for the Minnesota Vikings. The only thing that the Vikings will have to fear is having a humongous hangover after the apparent destruction of the Green Bay Packers. Vikings win this game by at least 3 touchdowns. The Dirty Birds are going to be terrible. They might get 5, maybe 6 wins. They're about 3 years away from doing anything, even in that garbage division. 5-4. Let's move on. 7-2. Well, for the first time in a while, we won't be able to face the Saints with Sean Payton or Drew Brees. And at the end of the day, we'll get Sean Payton next week. We'll talk about that shortly. But while I think that the Saints are going to ultimately be the team that wins this division, they're not coming into US Bank Stadium. I know. I actually think that old Derek Carr is a little underrated. I mean, he's Kirky Boy light, where he's a good, not great quarterback, and ultimately you can win some regular season games with him, but you ain't getting much further than the wild card round or the divisional round with this guy. But he's not coming into US Bank Stadium. I will actually take the Vikings, and I will say by at least 10 points. What do you think of that? Well, I don't necessarily disagree that I do think the Saints have the best chance of winning that garbage division, but coming into US Bank Stadium, Derek Carr is not going to beat the Vikings. At this particular point in the season, their defense is going to be on solid ground. They will not be playing the Adonis Shell defense anymore. They're going to be getting turnovers, and at the end of the day, I'll take my chances with Kirk Cousins over Derek Carr. I didn't say it was better. Sunday Night Football, the Denver Broncos will host the Minnesota Vikings, and Sean Payton will actually have a chance to face the Vikings again. And as much as I hate saying this, I think this is one the Vikings are going to struggle with. I can't keep picking all of the easy games for the Vikings to win and the hard games for the Vikings to lose. This is going to be the one where we don't expect them to lose that they actually will. See, I'm not a total homer. Wow. I didn't think you actually had it in you. Yeah, this is one where the Vikings are going to slip up. You got Sunday Night Football. I think it'll be a close game, but I do think that Sean Payton's going to have a little something for Russell Wilson. I think they're going to be better. Yeah, they're going to lose this one. Yeah, Hackett was a bit of a hack job. No need to take too much time on this one. At this point, Justin Fields will be shown to be just a mediocre quarterback, better than what he has been, but ultimately just another guy. Going into the bye week, the Vikings beat the Bears by at least 10 points. At this point in the season, Justin Fields will be revealed to be the fraud that he is. The Minnesota Vikings are coached by a good coach in Kevin O'Connell, and good coaches know you need to go into and out of the bye week with victories. The Vikings on Monday Night Football with Kirk Cousins will beat the Chicago Bears by at least 10 points. 8-5 into the bye week with this schedule is nothing to be ashamed of. It's not the best it could be, but 8-5 into the bye week's not bad. And O'Connell's not going to let anything happen to these guys going into and out of a bye week with victories. That's all I got. I like the Vikings in this game as well. No, they will not go Detroit Lions and gamble. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time. This is a loss. I don't want to hear it. Joe Burrow at home in December. I think the Vikings are going to be a little bit better than they were last year, but I'm not picking them to go on the road against the second best quarterback in the NFL. Yeah, we're not going to spend too much time on this one. The Vikings are not going to beat the Cincinnati Bengals. I think they'll be competitive. Shocker, I know. But no, this is a loss. Even I can't come up with something optimistic to say about this. Joe Burrow's the second best quarterback in the NFL. For all intents and purposes, could have playoff implications, division implications. Detroit, at this point, will have had its ups and downs, but I'm telling you right now, Detroit is going to Detroit. The Vikings win this game by at least 10 points. There will be no need for a fourth quarter comeback. Mark it down. Vikings win. This is going to be for all the marbles. No, this is not the game that the Vikings clinch the division, but after beating the Detroit Lions at home by at least 10 points, they will be able to go into Green Bay and win the division. And that's about it. The Lions are going to Lions. Their curse is bigger than the Vikings' curse. The Vikings will control their own destiny. They will beat the Green Bay Packers, and it will be glorious to ring in the new year with the division title. Well, I hope you're right that this game will clinch the division, but I do believe they're still going to have something to play for in Week 18 because I do believe they'll be in the hunt for the second seed. But Vikings will sweep the Packers, and they will win by a combined total of at least 28 points. Happy New Year! Vikings destroy the Packers yet again. This game will be utterly meaningless. The Vikings will have already clinched the 3 seed last week against the Green Bay Packers. They will not be in contention for the 2 seed. They will rest their starting quarterback with a few others. Jaron Hall gets his first start in the NFL, but ultimately the Lions will still be trying to get a wild card spot. And unlike last year against Green Bay, it'll mean something to them. I think that the Vikings are just going to throw this game away, so to speak. 10-7, not a bad record if you ask me, but hey, that's just my thoughts. I completely disagree. I think this will be the number 2 seed where the Vikings control their own destiny. So no, Jared Hall will not be playing in this game unless the Vikings are already up 35-0 at halftime. Vikings win. Vikings finish off this season 13-4. Yes, the same 13-4 that they had last year, except they won't have as many come from behind victories because they will actually have an offense that is a little bit more consistent, and they'll have a defense that doesn't just let the opponent walk on down the field. Vikings win the division. They get the number 2 seed, and we will have 2 playoff games at home in US Bank Stadium. So there you have it. Once again, the media can kick rocks, and at the end of the day, if you want to buy into this Detroit Lions hype, go ahead. But to say that the Vikings aren't going to win at least 10 or 11 games, or did I say 12? I don't recall. In all seriousness, thank you kindly for joining me. If you are consuming this on the Vikings First and SKOL podcast feed and you want to see the visual, please hit up my YouTube channel. That's Purple and Gold for Days. But for now, as always, SKOL. To the next episode.